Hi, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Today I'm talking about our EPP project. I wanted to bring you up to date on where I am. I know I said I wasn't going to do another video, but I went and bought some new fabric, some white fabric to go into this. And I wanted to just show you before we get much further along what I think it might look like, at least initially. So we'll be right back and I'll give you a sneak peek. And welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. So hi, welcome back. Now, today I've got a short video for you, a little sneak peek about what this EPP project I think is going to look like. I went yesterday and bought some fabric, just some plain white fabric from the same store that I bought this fabric from. And I picked something that was the same color as the background here. And when I really looked at the texture of the fabric, to me it looks almost identical. It's got just a little, occasionally just got one little thread that's woven in that's a little bit thicker, and that seems to be consistent with both of these fabrics. So that was one of the reasons in picking it. Now, where did I get this from? Oh, I don't know. We'll just stick it here. So what I've done is I've made a lot of pieces. I've really spent a good little bit of time working on the pieces for this. And to be honest with you, the reason is I enjoy it. And it was something that during a stressful week, I could sit down. I knew exactly how to make these pieces, and I could just whip through them really quickly and kind of veg out, to be honest with you. But it puts me in a good place to be working on this project. So I wanted to show you a little bit about that. Now, I've got this new fabric that I'm making these pieces, the pink. I've got the pattern pieces. I've got the pale green pieces, the kind of deep sea green pieces. And then I've got the really, really dark mottled fabric with the design in there that's almost black. And what I want to try to do is bring all these together. Now, I've kind of laid out a design here that I wanted to show you. And I'm going to put my overhead camera on and talk a little bit about this design. Remember, this is very preliminary, but it does give you an idea of how we're doing it. I think even in what I have here, I'm still going to intersperse some more white into this and maybe pull those darker colors a little further from the center so that we're kind of starting out that medium light fabric, lots of whites, lots of pale fabrics, and then start adding in some other colors and darker colors kind of as a accent to what we've got going on. A lot like when you're listening to maybe a symphony orchestra and you hear these strings playing and they're playing a lovely melody, and all of a sudden you might hear a horn, or you might hear a little rumble of the drum, or some other accent that kind of brings levity and variation into that. So that's what this is. And I'm almost to the point of picking a name for this one. And my husband and I had a conversation about this last night, and I think I've settled on something. I just need to maybe sleep on it one more time. So here's our design. And what I've started out with is the pattern, our main focal fabric here. This, I'm going to call it a floral. It's really just leaves with a little dot, but here it is in the center. And then I've surrounded it with a ring of white and the pale green. That I really like. And for this first ring, I think it's going to be in pairs of 2. I think we're going to follow that out a little bit, and then we're going to get into bigger groupings. So here you see this. I think this the center and the first ring are just fine the way they are. When we get into the third ring, you see I've dropped in some of this darker fabric, I think I want to pull that out a little bit and continue with the really pale ones. I'm still on the lookout for a little pale pink that might go with this. Pink is kind of a tricky thing because you either have the really bright neon-y pink or you have the super pale baby pink. And I kind of want something baby pink with a little bit of the hue of the hot pink in there so it will mesh in very well. So I'm still on the hunt for that. So I'm not going to be sewing anything together yet, probably for another week or two. But this does give us an idea how we're going to do it. Now, if you'll bear with me just a moment, I want to spin this board around. I think I can do that without dumping it all. The thing about these pieces is when you play with them, it's a lot like a puzzle. You can't move it once you start. I'm bringing my... I think we can do it. Yeah, we can do it. We can do it. Okay. So as we grow this more and more, and let's see, okay, we're here. The pieces that come out with this, we're still going to have a lot of white in it. So it's not going to be quite as vivid as this is here. We're going to have all that white in here. And then we're going to start adding in colors. And there's a few little ways that we can add in the colors, and we're going to add them in groupings. The further we get out from the center, the bigger those groupings are going to tend to be. And this is going to have some repetitive aspects and then some variations in that. So when we add in, we can either add in one piece, we can add in, I think we'll do these as separate. You can add in one piece, you can add them in pairs, which would be this little arrow shape, and we've got that on here already. Then we could do units of 3. Let me move these up just a little bit, make sure you can still see me. You can. Then we can have a unit of 3, and what will that look like? That will look like this. And you are seeing the tails here, but when they're sewn into the whole thing, you will not see these tails. So there's a unit of 3. And from 3, we can go to 4. I'm going to borrow 1 there. And that's just going to be a diamond. We can also, if we chose to do a grouping of 5. And we might do something like that as we get way out into the outer areas, because you're going to want something bigger to hold the eye as you go out. And we can also do even bigger units. And give me just a minute to put this together. Trying to do it kind of neatly here. This would probably be the biggest unit we would use, would be something like this. And that's 9 pieces that put this together. So you can imagine we're starting out really small and we're growing outward. Now, the funny thing about EPP is until you actually sew it together, you're free to change it any way you want. And if you wanted a quilt that was more of a dark background with light accents, you could just make more of these. If you wanted a pink quilt, you could make more of these. And if you're looking for something with more design, you could use a pattern. So it's truly, truly up to you how you choose to make this come together. And sometimes your design may be driven by how many pieces you have. Because as we get further and further out from the center, and we have those rings that we're looking at, you're going to need more and more pieces the further you go out. So you're probably going to be looking at what fabric do you have more pieces in. And that may make up some of your design choices. So keep that in mind too. If you have a fabric that you have a small quantity of, you're probably going to want to put it closer to the center when you're using a burst design like this, because you have fewer pieces. And fabric that you have more of, you can use further out. Now, for the most part, I think most of these fabrics I got about a yard of. I know this one I got more, and I don't recall if it was a yard and a half or 2 yards. It may have been 2 yards. And the white fabric I bought yesterday, I got 3 yards of, so I have lots more of that. And I was looking last night doing some quick calculations. Let me grab my fabric here with my paper. And the ones I made yesterday out of this white fabric, and let me see if it tells me how wide it is. You know, I took a picture of the bolt, and that's another tip that I'll give you, is when you're buying fabric, if you take a picture of the end of the bolt, you will have all of the information you need if you need to order it or if you need to go back to the store and find that same fabric. This fabric, it says it is 43/44 inches wide. And I'm cutting a 2 1/8 inch strip, and I'm getting 15 of these diamonds per strip. So a yard of this fabric, if my math is right, maybe I should check it just to be sure, because I did it in my head. Or with a pencil, I should say with a pencil. Okay, and let me do one more calculation just to make sure. 2.125. 16. Okay, my calculator says I can get almost 17 strips per yard, and I had calculated 16 because I would rather calculate under than calculate over. So you should get 240 of these diamonds per yard, and these diamonds are 2 inch. Those are measured on the side. And these are 45-degree diamonds. The 60-degree diamonds are fatter in the middle. These are a little skinnier. So we're going to get many more pieces. And as we talked about before, remember that you're going to be using some of that yardage as your seam allowance. And there is seam allowance for every side of every piece. So this will be a heavier quilt than some of your others. That's about all I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed this and it's been helpful. I've also been working this week on our block of the month, so it will be time to film that and get that up really soon. And we're also working on some challenges we've had with our Barnstar last block that we were making. So we'll be covering that We'll be covering that in Friday's video if you'd like to tune in for that. And that's the quilt we're working up here. I thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. If you like this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you have not already, because that does help us grow the channel. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time at the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Bye.